G'day guys, I'm at this beautiful river today and I'm thinking if there's a trout here, he's going to be right there. Why? Because of the trout's hierarchy of needs. Let me explain. I like to think of trout as having three fundamental needs that are always present, and these needs will drive most of a trout's behaviour. Every trout is trying to solve the same three problems, not necessarily all at once, but certainly all within the period of a day. And once you understand what those are and how trout prioritise them, you'll start to be able to read the river like a trout does. The first need of a trout is what I call comfort, but it's probably not comfort like you or I think of it. For trout, the most important factors for comfort are water temperature, oxygen availability, and of course ensuring that the water chemistry is relatively clean and okay for them. But the big one is water temperature. For trout, the sweet spot is usually between about 10 and 18 degrees Celsius. If the water gets too warm, they'll slide into faster, cooler runs. If it's too cold, they'll slow down and often tuck into slower pools. I've done a full video on this idea called the Master Dial, and I'll link it above if you'd like a deep dive into how water temperature drives trout behaviour. You see, trout aren't able to regulate their own body temperature, so they need to move around to find the right water temperature that suits their metabolism and allows their muscles to function properly and for them to feed effectively. Another aspect of comfort is finding a spot where a trout doesn't need to expend too much energy to hold its position in the river. Trout will use obstructions in the flow or hydraulic cushions created by changes in the bottom structure of the river to find spots where they can hold with little to no energy cost. The second need is safety, by which I mean safety from predators. So trout will use various zones as safe zones. Sometimes it might be hard structure like this big tree snag behind me here, or shade, but it's not always hard structure. Sometimes it can just be deep water or a broken surface. Anything that is going to protect trout from predators is a safety zone. And it can depend on what predators are around. You see, predators could be anglers for one thing, but could also be birds, for example, in which case the trout are going to want some sort of overhead cover, whether that be broken water or trees or shade over them. And in other cases, it might even be larger fish that might hunt them in certain zones. It pays to know what the predators are in your area and think about what safety means to a trout in the particular rivers that you're fishing. But safety is always a trade-off. The best cover might keep them hidden, but if no food is drifting past, it's not much use. Trout are constantly balancing safety with opportunity. Sometimes they'll need to prioritise feeding over safety, but if they can feed in a safe location, then they will. Once the first two needs are met, the third need comes into play, which is food. Now when a trout wants to feed, it comes to the supermarket of the river, which is this riffle zone above me here. You see, riffle zones are where the aquatic insects live and where most of the food availability will be for the trout in a river. Probably 80% of a trout's food comes from these nymphs that live in these little rocks in riffle zones. And when insects are hatching, that's when the nymphs become available to the trout. So when a trout wants to feed, it'll come up into a zone like this, a drop in just below a riffle, where there's some nice slow water that the trout can sit in and the food is coming straight to them from the supermarket, from that riffle. They'll find a nice soft seam, an area where, for example, this fast water is coming down here in front of me, and then you can probably see there's a softer bit just in the middle here. That's the perfect spot for a trout because they can sit there without expending too much energy but still have the food coming past them in the fast water that they can duck out and grab once it becomes available to them. Most of a trout's diet is nymphs drifting out of riffles, but they're opportunists. Terrestrial insects like beetles, ants or hoppers can be just as important, as well as the dry fly stages of those nymphs. And also trout will feed sometimes on baitfish, crustaceans and other food sources. So back to this spot. This area has nice, cool, flowing water that's comfortable for the trout. There's broken water overhead that's providing cover for them, and there's food coming down from the riffle zone up above them. That's why, when I came to this spot, I reckon if there's a trout here, that's where he's going to be. Think of these three needs like the legs of a stool. If even one is missing, the trout usually won't stay there for long. Next time you're out on the water, don't just look for a trout. Look for places that satisfy the needs of a trout, and remember the trout's hierarchy of needs. Comfort, safety, food. The more of those things that you can find combined together in the one place, the more likely it is that a trout will be there. In the next video, we're going to talk about the structure of a river, how to read it, and how trout use that structure to position themselves. If you like this video, or if you have any questions, please leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks very much for watching. See you next time.